Thank you for that report. Let's bring back in Aaron Reed. He's a criminal defense attorney. He's doing our analysis for us today. Aaron, as I'm listening to all of this, I thought it was particularly interesting that the federal prosecutor walked through what happened on that day in December of 2024 and how much he actually ended up admitting to in court, Mangioni, about the level of premeditation that went into this. Could that ultimately, just the detail there of how this was not just a crime of an instant or a crime of passion, that all of that detail and the research that ultimately could cut against the double jeopardy claim that Mangioni's attorneys are going to file in state court in New York?
I tend to agree. I know that the federal prosecutors mentioned murder and premeditation, and I think that was a note to get the federal prosecutors kind of an idea that this was premeditated. He didn't get charged with premeditated murder in federal court, so I think they are trying to do their best to help out the state prosecutors. But I don't know if it did them any favors. Admitting to all the counts in the indictment, which before I was mistaken, I thought he had only pled to the two. It looks like he pled to the entire indictment, which does include a murder charge, but it's a felony murder charge, stalking. So there are still different elements. There are still different things that the prosecutors in the state court would have to prove. The argument now is going to be, is that substantially different than what was charged in the indictment, specifically for the murder?
Talk to us about the prosecutor's strategy here. They dropped the murder charge. I believe the gun charge were thrown out a number of months ago, and they put everything into the stalking charges. A lot of people might be saying, but he killed a man. Why wasn't he charged with murder? Take us. It is a different crime. Is this a matter of just trying to get this guy behind bars, and what happens with the state case sort of happens? Why did the federal prosecution sort of end up taking this direction?
I think a number of strategies. I mean, when you have a complex indictment, you're trying to get someone. I believe he came all the way from somewhere in the South, Georgia, all the way up through all those states. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of different elements. And they, I think, essentially took an exit that said, well, we can get him on these charges. It's a little bit easier to prove those charges based on the evidence that we have. And it still carries with it a substantial sentence and a substantial punishment. So I think that's just a strategy call by the district attorney's office in the Southern District of New York, trying to say, hey, we have this. We understand that the state prosecutors are also prosecuting him for a premeditated murder. So I think it was just a little bit of strategy on their part to get him to plead guilty or at least convicted of something without having to rely on a state prosecutor.
Let's talk about the state case, Aaron. Now we're going to be moving into jury selection. That is going to be sort of a blind jury selection process, but it's going to be in Manhattan. How do you think that they have any recourse to challenge the venue as they move forward with the state case? Because I mean, this is one of the biggest cases in recent memory. How do you proceed with a fair jury selection in a situation like this?
It's extraordinarily difficult. Even blind selection, it's going to be hard. Eventually, these jurors are going to know what case this is. They're going to understand what it is. They're going to be told the name of the defendant. They're going to have those connections. And having it in Manhattan does, I think, impact his ability to get a fair trial in state court. His defense team will undoubtedly argue for a change of venue if they don't succeed on getting it dismissed through double jeopardy. I think that's a viable strategy. And we've seen that before on a lot of other high-profile cases. They change the venue because it is a very complex case. A lot of people have heard about it, especially in Manhattan. I do think that is a viable strategy for his defense team if they lose that double jeopardy motion.
All right, Aaron Reed, thank you for sticking with us throughout this breaking news this afternoon. Appreciate your analysis.
Thank you for having me.